Hey, fourth graders. So today we are going to be making our very own fossils. Now, I am super excited because I've always wanted to be on my own cooking show or really crafting show, and this is kind of like that. Wow. Okay, so what you're going to do today is we're going to be making a fossil, as I just said. So there's certain materials or certain things that you need, and all the directions and the specific amounts of each one is on the next slide. So if this video is too fast for you, or you would just rather go step by step, you can check out the next slide where all the directions and all the instructions are. But you're going to need flour, salt, and some water. Those are really the three main ingredients for your salt dough fossils, which is what we're going to be making. So you're also going to need a bowl to put those things in. You're going to need some type of spoon to mix it up. And you're going to need a pan with either some parchment paper so it doesn't stick, or I have what I'd like to call a silly pat. It's not called a silly pat, it's called a silpat, but I like to call it a silly pat. So I've got one of those, which is basically like parchment paper, because I love to bake and cook. So I've got one of those. And then the last thing you're gonna need is you're gonna have to figure out what is it that you want to fossilize. So as you've learned over the past few slides here and over the course of today, is that natural things go through a fossilization process when they go deep down into the earth. So you want to find things that are naturally found on earth, things like different plants. So I've got like a plant here, I've got a plant leaf here, or shells, if you have any shells that you want to fossilize. Or I know it's not a real thing, but if you want to find like a action figure that's a dinosaur, or find something that has footprints on it. Like I've got a little frog here that I could fossilize, or I could just use his little feet prints and make a fossil out of those. So if you want to do like a dinosaur imprint or a cat imprint, you guys love your cats, I know. But anyways, you can find any kind of object that would be natural out on earth. Like I could go outside and find a frog outside, but I'm not going to use a real frog because he won't be happy if I have to smush him into some dough. So I'm going to use a fake frog instead. So go ahead and go grab those materials. And then in the meantime, I'm going to switch my camera angle so that hopefully you guys can see exactly what I'm doing today. Okay, so to start, we are going to mix the flour and salt. So you need a whole cup of flour. So 1 cup of flour, and you're going to dump that into your bowl. And then you need a half a cup of salt. So this is like your typical table salt. So you're going to put those into a bowl. Feel free to stop my video whenever you need to. So if you want it to measure it out right now, and then, like I said, measure out your flour, dump it in, measure out your salt, dump it in, as I kind of am stalling right now. Feel free to pause your video at any time to do that. Okay, then you're gonna grab your spoon and you're just gonna give that a little mix so that the salt and flour is kind of mixed together. You shouldn't be able to see any chunks of salt anywhere. It basically should look like one mixture here. Okay, so now once you've done that, you are going to put in a 1/4 cup of water. So start with a 1/4 cup, which I just realized I don't have my 1/4 cup out here. Not very good baking show etiquette if I don't have all my materials. Here's my 1/4 cup. So start with a 1/4 cup of water and pour that in. And you are going to mix that together, and it should start to turn kind of doughy. Now, if it's still really dry, we're going to add more water to it. But if it's really, really wet, then what we'll do is we'll add more flour to it, because you want this dough to not be too sticky, but you also don't want it to be too dry. So worst comes to worst, slowly add the water. So we don't want to add a lot at one time. So right now, just kind of feeling it. We're getting close. Oh, this is the fun part, everyone. So put that spoon down, roll up those sleeves. Oh yeah, and we're gonna need this thing. So you're gonna use your hands. Oh yes, this is the exciting part. All right, so I can feel my dough is still pretty dry. You can see it's crumbly. Do you see those crumbles there? So I'm gonna add just a touch more water, not too much. Okay, little bit at a time. So go ahead, and this is called kneading your dough. So what you're doing is you're kind of pushing and squeezing so that your dough will eventually turn into one big ball. That's what you want it to look like, is a big ball of dough. And as you can see, we're getting close. I've got like a big ball right here, but I've got all these little chunks that have not gone into it yet. So I'm going to keep kneading here and keep adding a little bit more water at a time until I've got a big ball. So you go ahead and do the same. I'm going to cut to hopefully my ball being ready to go. So go ahead and keep kneading, keep adding water. And if you add too much water, just add a little bit more flour to it. All right, so I'm going to pause my video and kind of keep kneading this for a little while until I've got a big ball of dough. All right, so as you can see, I've kind of fast forward here. It only took me about, I don't know, 3 more minutes to get my dough to turn into this ball. So you can see this perfect ball inside of my bowl. And it's not too sticky, like it's not sticking to my hands. It doesn't feel too wet. It feels pretty doughy right now. So you can put your bowl off to the side. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of roll out your dough because you want it to be nice and flat. Now, if you have a rolling pin, you're going to go ahead and pull that out. I realized today that I don't own a rolling pin. So that's something that I'm going to have to go get. And you think for somebody who likes to bake that I would have a rolling pin? I don't. So that's something I've got to get. So if you have a rolling pin, you want to use that rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, like you're in my situation, you can just use your hands to kind of flatten things out and just kind of keep flipping it around. You want to say for it to be about a 1/4 inch thick. Okay, so if you want to pull out a ruler, you can, but do you see how it's not super thin, but it's not super thick here? Let's see. Sorry. There we go. So do you see the thickness of this here? That's about as thick you want it to be. Okay. As you can see, I've got a lot of dough here. That's exciting. Which means I can bake lots of fossils. So if you want to get brothers and sisters involved, if you got some brothers and sisters at home, especially the little ones, like if you got that kindergarten, 1st grade brother, sister, they're probably like, I want to do it too. Well, guess what? There's enough dough for everybody. All right, so what you can do is you can kind of cut out your dough to make it a certain shape. Like if you have a cookie cutter that you want to use, you could use a cookie cutter. If you have like a measuring cup like this and you want to just cut a circle around it, you can. So you've got some different options of how you want to cut your dough. If you just want to cut it into, here we go. If you just want to cut it into sections, like you just want this to be a fossil like that, you could do something like that. But if you want it to be a certain shape, then you can kind of cut around like so. Something like that. Oop. There we go. Now, if you want to, you could also turn these into ornaments that could go on your tree if that's something that you'd like to do too. But go ahead and cut out your dough into the kind of pieces that you want. Okay. If you've got extra dough, like I said, you can let your brothers and sisters get involved if that's something that they like to do. All right. But once you've got your fossils here, or they're not fossils yet, you've got dough, what you're going to do is you're going to take your objects that you have. So for me, it's like plants and the frog. And what you're going to do is you're going to press that into your dough. So you're going to press it into your dough. Just like that. Now you're not going to leave that there because if you leave it there, when you stick this in the oven, it'll crumble up. So you're just going to pull that up like this and you've got some fossil imprints. So I've got like this leaf right here. I'm just going to push that in. Okay, and then peel it right off. I'm going to use my little knife here to get this off. There we go. So you're just going to make some imprints here. I don't know if you guys can see those. My light, there you go. I've got it's very sunny today while I'm recording this, so it's hard to see. Same thing. So you could use some shells. There we go. Imprint some shells. Oh, that actually looks really, really cool. Kind of push that in. You could do the opposite side of a shell. Or I can bring out Mr. Frog here. If you want, you can just use the hands. Like if you are doing a dinosaur, Jude, I know you're for sure using some type of dinosaur, I'm sure of it. You could just use its paw prints, kind of like that. Or if you want to fossilize the whole thing, what you'll just do is you'll just take your frog or your dinosaur, whatever you have, and you'll just kind of push them in, just like that. That's the whole thing. You just kind of push down and around, and then, oh, there you go. You've got your fossilized frog there. Okay, so what you'll do then is you're going to plop these onto your pan. Just like that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick this in the oven for 200 degrees for about an hour. So we're gonna try an hour, and then what you'll do is you'll flip them. So you're gonna flip your fossils after sticking it in for an hour, cook it for an hour more, and then they should be done. Now, if they're still not done, and you'll know because they will be still wet, you want them to be dry, like almost like a rock. Just stick it in for another hour and it should dry it out. Now, fun fact, if you want to if you've got extra dough, you like I said, you could make some Christmas ornaments with this. If that's something you'd like to do, or if you want to turn your fossilized fossils into an ornament or you want it to hang, then what you just do is you'll just create a hole. And you can create a hole by grabbing a straw or like a pencil and just make a little hole like this inside your dough. You see that? And then once it's done cooking, you could tie a string around it. Ah, love it. Cooking show. So I'm gonna stick this in the oven for 200 degrees and hopefully it turns out. Like I said, it's gonna take a couple hours to dry out. If you would like to, feel free to share your fossils on our class blog and show us kind of how they turned out. Hopefully you have some fun today creating some fossils.